The market itself is being blown wide open by AI. So you couldn't say like, okay, they're now dominating like across Europe. No. I mean, there's so many more competitors coming into the market generally from all sides, from the tech side, from the AI side. Welcome back to Slator Pod. Hello there, Esther.
Hey, Florian, welcome back to you too.
Yes, we're back with a podcast from, what's now, it's an arid landscape. Zurich has turned into some like Mediterranean landscape, maybe a little bit, Sicily style, very dry, very arid. So,
Yeah,
welcome.
same in green and pleasant England. It's not so green
I
anymore.
saw some pictures from like Hyde Park. Were they fake? Were they AI? Or like, is it really
Probably
like
not. I
just...
mean, I've not been to Hyde Park recently, but there's certainly a lot of, it's like drought land.
Well, there's no drought in Newsland. That's why we need to catch up here on the podcast. But first, really excited to have SlatorCon San Francisco come up. So we'll start with the networking and welcome reception on September 2nd. Looking forward to hearing from Ebru Ildirim, who is the CEO of Olang, and she's going to address our participants there at the welcome reception on September 2nd. And then we'll start with the full day conference program on September 3rd, starting at 9:30 a.m. I'll share a few thoughts around how we see the industry. Then we're heading over to a panel that'll be moderating with Teresa Marshall and Semi Altinai from Phrase and Salesforce, respectively. Then we're heading to a panel with Crisp, our new friends from Crisp around voice AI. That's moderated by Alex. Then we have Scale AI's Emily Xue talk about enterprise AI and data for AI. We have Marco Trombetti in the afternoon starting to speak about limits of today's AI translation. Marco Trombetti, of course, from Translated. Then let's go further. An amazing investor panel that you're going to be moderating, where AI investors are betting. We have Khosla Ventures and Dell Technologies Capital there that you'll be moderating that panel. Then we have XTM, a panel on AI localization risk and compliance that Sylvia is going to be moderating from our side. Then David Lee, CEO of Iono, the world's biggest media localizer, gets to speak in the afternoon. And then we have Gabriel Fairman from Works and Eliza from Coca-Cola talking about scaling AI across global ops, language AI across global ops. Then one presentation I'm particularly looking forward to, Marlon Duarte from UCLA Health on language access in healthcare. Very, very interesting. And then we got Spence Green from Lilt, returning as a speaker. And then you'll wrap up the conference and then we head over to the drinks and the networking reception at the phenomenal St. Regis. So that took me, 2 minutes to go through.
It's a busy program. I think hearing you rattle off all the names and companies, I'm like, oh yeah, got a solid program. It's going to be a good day.
Pretty solid program. And, starting to look like good turnout also. San Francisco now quite competitive in terms of conferencing. A lot of stuff going on. Of course, in that part of the world, especially when it comes to AI, the heart and soul of AI, if AI has a soul, it'll be found in San Francisco. All right. So, you want to join that one if you're on the West Coast, if you're in the US, or if you, can get your ESTA visa approved. So what did you think when you saw that RWS is going to buy Acolad, Esther? Your, 2-3-second hot take at the time, not after considering the whole thing, but like initially.
Well, I thought, did we predict in January 2026 that there might be a consolidation or acquisition of one of the super agencies? So I think we did, which is always
a perennial
nice
prediction. It's a perennial prediction.
we don't need to talk about the years that we predicted that it hasn't happened. But I'm pretty sure that at the beginning of 2026 we said there will be a super agency sale or acquisition. So, but aside from that, interesting. I mean, I kind of immediately thought about people that I know who might have left RWS to work for Acolad and how they might look upon that acquisition. Welcome back. Yeah.
To the fold.
But okay, all of that aside, it's exciting. I think when you get a deal of this magnitude, in our industry, and it involves a lot of people, and it would have been a very, very complex transaction.
Yeah, it's one of those transactions that only a handful of companies in the space would have been able to pull off. And I think it's actually not yet fully closed. I guess it's contractually maybe not fully closed. I'm sure it's going to go ahead, but there's like a bunch of regulatory hoops in, drumroll, France, that they have to jump through. So maybe that's why Ben Fass, who is French, felt comfortable doing this, because there's a lot of stuff that you need to kind of still do in France to close that one. All right, look, the highlights here would be that I think this is gonna put RWS kind of at the very top of the LSI food chain there, alongside TransPerfect. I think Acolad has about 1,200 employees across about 22 countries that are going to join RWS. RWS is going to be pretty big in terms of headcount after this, and revenue, of course. Now, what really turned heads was the apparent valuation, which was like 2 times adjusted EBITDA. So basically, RWS is paying about 20 million pounds, rounded down. I think it was 22.4, but we're not going to kind of go into the second, like, anyway,
hundreds of thousands.
hundreds of thousands here. So basically, roughly 20 million pounds they paid, which is like, very super low. But the low valuation is largely explained, as I also wrote in the newsletter last week, by Acolad's heavily leveraged capital structure and kind of historically debt-funded acquisition strategy, right? So basically, PE owned, buy and build. So they spent years kind of borrow, acquire, refinance, acquire, which eventually kind of led to the debt exceeding what kind of the operating earnings could comfortably support. So the bondholders wanted to get something for that. So they ended up with, they reclaimed some of it, but not all of it. I mean, go and look up all the French kind of regulatory filings for more details there. But to be fair, though, I mean, Acolad's current management inherited that burden and stabilized the business ahead of the transaction. That's no mean feat. I mean, Bertrand Stalder and his team, they came in, I think, in 2023, when essentially the financial structure was as it was at sale. Like, it was a heavily leveraged structure, 300 million in debt, and well, they came in, stabilized the company, put it back on track, and now it actually became sellable to RWS, right? So I mean, in terms of the kind of strategic logic, this does make sense. The market itself is being blown wide open by AI, so you couldn't say like, okay, they're now dominating like across Europe. No. I mean, there's so many more competitors coming into the market generally, from all sides, from the tech side, from the AI side, that this does make sense. And for Acolad, it was a unique opportunity to get hundreds of big enterprise accounts by means of M&A, instead of having to invest in hundreds of salespeople. That would be a lot harder to get some of these accounts. So yeah, it does make sense. It expands in regulatory, or it's another expansion for RWS in regulatory. It's a further extension in geography. I think especially France and Germany, and they have they're going to expand quite well there. And there's some stuff coming in from in the US. Because if you look back, so Acolad, then it was Amplexor, and Amplexor originally acquired some, I'm blanking the name, was it Sagen that they acquired in the US?
That's
so
a long, that's a long time ago. Yeah, that's kind of before my time, but definitely, Amplexor, Live.
So it's about 10 years ago so that they have a US presence there as well. I mean, so execution time now. So you got this, you're going to integrate. Ben was pretty adamant that he wants to integrate fast, and doesn't want to run a company that's essentially 25 companies, 25 separate companies. So it's going to be a lot of kind of M&A execution risk and challenges ahead for RWS there. Cool. Yeah, I mean, congrats to RWS. Big move. Shares went up. Let me check now live as we're recording this.
It was like 15% on the day it was announced, I think, roughly.
Yeah, so still up, even a little bit more. So year to date, let me pull this up here. So year to date, RWS shares are up 38%. On 6 months, they're up 50%. Last month, they're up 54%. So basically, investors seem to be regaining confidence in that RWS is going to end up as, a winner in this game. I mean, still a far cry from 2022 all-time highs, which was
That
at
was the
600.
heyday of the kind
That
of.
was the heyday
They do a lot in IP and pre-AI.
But definitely off the lows. I think the lows, I mean, maybe up 70 or 80% from the lows. So yeah.
Very good.
Cool. So there was more M&A. Why don't you walk us through this? There were some smaller deals also happening.
Yeah, exactly. We can't forget, even though there was that big breaking news story, also other M&A or acquisitions happening in the language AI and solutions industry. So we had most recently we had the announcement that T-Works Group acquired Swiss Global. So yeah.
Congrats to Matthias.
Matthias, yeah, I think they're quite
Matthias
familiar.
Trimpy, he was my CFO back at CLS,
There
and then
you
he set
go.
out to start Swiss Global.
So apparently he'll be leaving Swiss Global, but the other co-founder, Mark Cheetham, who is COO, will lead the Swiss business as managing director of Switzerland. So that's that one. We also had news from Spain where Lexic Language Solutions has been acquired by Alphatrad. Lexic being a specialist in medical and pharma translations. And the Alphatrad CEO very bullish on being able to double company's revenues in a few years. Then we had a couple, well, I think one in the UK here, where we had Alpha CRC acquiring Pure Fluent. So that one was completed in June, but I think only announced slightly later, focused on technology, e-commerce, and life sciences. In the US, this sort of probably quite a large transaction. This is US legal sector. We had Magna Legal Services merging with Nageli, I think that's how you say it, Deposition and Trial. So very much legal outsourced services focused. But they have Magna, that is, who we've kind of been tracking for a while because they've been doing quite a lot of acquisitions, including those focused around sort of interpreting in particular. So they have, what was it? So Nageli brings with it 140 employees, so not a tiny acquisition. And now the total workforce of Magna is over 1,100 employees, including 2,000 interpreters. So it's no small interpreting operation that they have there.
I'd like to squeeze in a trivia. So that name, I wasn't familiar with that. How would you pronounce that?
I think I said it wrong, but Nageli, maybe?
Okay.
Nageli?
No. So let me try to give you my kind of
Go on.
etymology of that word. So this is 99%. This is a Swiss name, and it will be with the 2 dots. It's like my name, like AE is A. So it's Nageli, which is a Swiss name, which literally means small nail, and So
small nail deposition and trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So small nail, and it's one of the most famous graffiti artists in Zurich. So there is that name, like Nageli. It's he's a guy, like he wrote like little kind of stick men, or what do you call them? Stick figure.
Yeah, stick people. Yeah, I don't know.
Stick people. So he started graffitiing stick people in Zurich, like I think in the 70s or 80s, and nobody knew who he was for like 3 decades.
He was like the Banksy of Switzerland.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, exactly. And I think eventually, like people found out who he was. Anyway, that was a quick detour into the name Nageli.
Right,
so some Nageli left for Portland and started a deposition and trial firm, and then sold it to Magna.
Probably not the same person.
Not the same person, but it's a marginally popular, like it's a marginally kind of common name. So maybe there's some family relations to the stick person, graffiti guy. Anyway, move on.
Yes. So we had another acquisition of Lisbon headquartered Viva Translations being acquired by RNA. So that's the expansion of a Brazil-based LSI into Europe. And then we had news of Contents.com, or Contents, I think they're now called, acquiring Balio, a fintech platform based in Barcelona. Contents is like a little bit on the periphery, I suppose, of the core localization AI industry. But we did have them talk at SlatorCon a couple of years ago, and they have in their history acquired translation expertise, capabilities. And they're on a bit of a mission to do a buy and build acquisition strategy, becoming a language AI and orchestration platform headquartered in Milan. They are. So that's sort of a bit of a roundup of maybe 6 weeks or so of M&A news.
Very good. Now, hard switch to EU AI Act, Article 50, and how it triggered Anthropic to add invisible watermarks to Claude.
Where to
So,
start?
where to begin? I mean, I have no idea how you add machine-readable invisible watermarks to text. So, okay, you go to Claude, it generates text, and there's probably, I don't know, at this point, I don't know, a substantial fraction of the internet is probably Claude-generated text. So, I was trying to find it out, but I can't even begin to like explain or TLDR how you add invisible
Wouldn't it just be
watermarks.
like, I mean, not that I know, wouldn't it just be like another kind of feature, as in you don't see the font, you don't explicitly know what font it is, what font size it is. So it's just another kind of
I think it's
thing.
the actual text. I think
Yeah.
it's the actual textual logic. That's how I what I read in my 10 minutes on X. I think it's not like font or anything like that. It's literally the actual wording and the letters. So it
Yeah.
probably needs a specific amount of text to be able to watermark it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like you couldn't just have a one word, oh, that's been generated by Claude.
You're right. It's you may need like a paragraph or something like that. But okay, so let's leave our listeners to go and find out how Anthropic machine readable adds machine readable invisible watermark to text. Now, this apparently also applies to translations as well as other generated text. It's I mean, it was driven by that EU AI Act, and I think initially they wanted to do it like they're releasing it on models in the EU, but they want to extend it globally. And then it's on all their platforms, Claude, Code, Cowork, Tag, blah blah blah, plus all of the other platforms they're publishing it. So it's designed to survive copy paste and some editing, and
What
but
if
the
you
problem
remove
is
formatting?
if you're exactly.
Joking.
So translation creates a major problem, right? The watermark indicates Claude involvement, but not necessarily AI authorship. And as we said before, like short text may provide an insufficient signal for reliable detection. I don't look. Again, the translation is you can get rid of the watermark by translating, but if you use Claude to translate, there will be a watermark generated, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
If anybody has a different piece of information, please correct this. Add it to add a comment on YouTube.
The underlying goal, at least of the AI Act, is transparency, right? So it's kind of, we want to know if AI is involved in this.
But that's going to look so quaint in like 20
Yeah,
years,
because I was kind of coming at it from a more like
maybe 2 years.
maybe it's plagiarism. You want to kind of avoid in universities or what have you, like plagiarism, because this would potentially be a way to do it. Or plagiarism or plain copying from AI.
AI generated content can be detected, but like in 5 years, 99% of the content is going to be AI generated. So what's the point? And then if you have a piece of content that's 95% AI generated, and then 5% you're adding some additional value to it, like why would it need to be? And let's say you generate a piece of content, you read through it, you agree because you're an expert in a specific field, you add 5% of the text is going to be something you're writing originally, like it's a human generated piece of content. Like why would it be relevant that the remaining 95% are AI generated? Like I don't see the point. And then again, if you translate it using AI, what is it then? AI generated content? Apparently it's supposed to be, but like, what's the point? Like, so now you need to flag every AI generated piece of translation. Like,
I
what's
mean,
the point?
I
There's no
suppose the
point.
point is they have, well, they've kind of they've now aligned with the EU Act, so there is the capability to detect AI text. What
I'm
they
talking
do
about
with
the act. I'm not talking
yeah,
about them doing it. I'm talking
yeah,
about the
okay.
point of the act. Like that they're doing it because of the act, sure, but like, what's the point of the act? Like
You
that
go
just
ask the EU
I
lawmakers.
know. Oh, and they're like the EU is becoming this like meme now where like like in the US and China like they're developing frontier models and the EU kind of mandates that little kind of that the cap, the bottle cap is not
Oh yeah,
falling off, right?
yeah.
So it's like okay, yeah, great, you regulate it. Like why don't we like, generate. All right, moving on before we get too political
No
here.
EU bashing. Yeah.
Uh, Here's a good segue. A company that is not based in the EU, or at least no longer
Anymore.
anymore in the past 8 or 9 years, is Zoo Digital. So, media localizer. Revenue down. So, let me rattle through their full year 2026 financials. Revenue down 15% to about $40 million, mainly on weaker dubbing demand. Now, the full year 2025 comparison was boosted by the post-Hollywood strike backlog. Localization revenue is down quite substantially from 30 million to 24 million. Dubbing revenue down to 7 million, subtitling up to 1 million, 1.3 million. Gross margin improved, adjusted EBITDA up, EBITDA margin up. Net loss narrowed. That's good because you don't want to have a net loss because eventually you're going to run out of money, which I think they had some issues with liquidity. Headcount down 70%, so they had to let go of people, like roughly 400 people now. More fulfillment shifting to India and Chennai as the preferred expansion location. What else? They have this fast track service now that's now accounting for 10% of their revenue. Subtitles in 3 hours, dubbing in 24 hours, and AI is increasingly embedded in their workflows, which I know that Stuart Green, the CEO, he's very conscious of deploying AI in media localization. If you can go back to a podcast we recorded maybe 18 months ago. So he's not like jumping headlong into AI. He wants to have a very deliberate kind of process there. But
But they
of
do a
course,
lot
they
of
also have.
R&D, I think, don't they? I mean, it's not
Yep.
that they're kind of just wary. They're actively investigating quite a lot.
Yeah. And so for 27, the full year, they promise or they give an outlook that they return to revenue growth and further profit improvement, but they gave no formal guidance. And shares are trading like it's still super super low, but like off the kind of major lows there. So yeah, let's see. Thanks for all the transparency, Susan. You're one of the very few publicly listed LSIs left. So thanks for that. Now, let's try to go through this next topic that I want to talk about, which is a bit of a trend we noticed and we started covering, like international organizations hiring AI-enabled language roles. This is not going to be easy to summarize, so pardon to all of our viewers and listeners. But basically, we had NATO, ICC, WIPO or WIPO, Interpol, FIFA, and the IMF all hiring across language services. And the common thread there was that really AI and translation tech is now embedded in kind of the core job requirements. So initially, we looked at NATO hiring a deputy head of digital transformation, like deputy head / digital transformation lead, translation PM, and computational linguists.
That's all one role? No, well, that's three
No,
roles.
no, no, no. So that's it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Like
It's not all one.
that's a lot. Okay.
No, they hired a deputy head for NATO linguistic services.
Okay.
And it was this individual will be tasked to run an AI-enabled operation, and then the computational linguists is in charge of managing linguistic data, AI translation systems, etc. And you need to know English and French. Yeah, and then over to the International Criminal Court that is hiring a head of language services plus 3 translators. And they also need explicit knowledge of translation tech and AI tools. And then WIPO is hiring head of the Spanish translation section, similar AI translation, LLMs, TMS, all these good things. And then Interpol is hiring an English language department head, also responsible for AI strategy, government deployment. And then FIFA is hiring a Spanish translator that's based about maybe a kilometer from where I'm recording this podcast from, just up the hill, basically, FIFA headquarters. Same AI translation, familiarity, term extraction, quality estimation, etc. And then the IMF is hiring, and that's an interesting one. They're hiring a chief translator, deputy division chief, but then the IMF head went on record saying, like, hey, we're using AI, and as an example, they're saying that their translator and interpreter staff fell from roughly 200 to 50 amid AI expansion. So they slashed their kind of language headcount by, I don't know, 75%. But now they're hiring a chief translator. So they can pay the chief translator. Yeah, so all of these jobs postings we covered in the last 4 to 5 weeks on the website. But then you wanted to talk about a couple of green shoots in hiring. So
maybe, yeah.
Or kind of outliers. There was something in New York and then something in the Bay Area.
My one thought about all of the international organizations hiring is maybe they just copied each other in a sense. You know, like we saw this. Didn't we do a bit of a like comedy sketch about one tech company basically like totally ripping off the job ad of another tech company?
Wasn't that was Perplexity off of OpenAI or something like that, where it was like word for word? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the point being, you know, when you're writing a job ad as HR or what have you, you're probably looking at what your competitors or peers are doing and recruiting for, as well as what's needed in your own organization. Yeah, green shoots, I don't know. That was more just, personally, I think anecdotally on LinkedIn, I've definitely seen a lot more LinkedIn posts about hires in localization and language coming up on my feed than I have done in recent months. So that's in London. I mean, that's in the US. It's in Europe. You know, who knows? It could be just replacing headcount that was made redundant sort of a year ago or a year and a half ago, what have you. But I mean, yeah, we're still seeing. I mean, I picked up on 2 of the stories that Slater covered recently, and this really is a bit of a counterpart to the whole AI narrative that you were talking about in the institutional organizations. There's a language service coordinator role in the New York City Campaign Finance Board, hiring a language service coordinator in Manhattan. The role sits in public affairs and supports the language access unit. I mean, that one, I scoured the actual job ad and there's absolutely no mention of AI whatsoever. So it reads a lot more like a sort of fairly old school or traditional language role or coordinator role. So you've got things like maintaining TMs, glossaries, style guides. I mean, all still needed and useful, but absolutely no mention of AI within that. It pays around 80K.
You're going to have to commute into Manhattan.
Apparently, I guess. I don't know how many days.
From far out of Manhattan.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, on the other side of the sort of salary spectrum and probably AI adoption spectrum, there was news that OpenAI is still continuing to hire within its localization, or its new-ish localization team. I think, as we just alluded to, they hired their first localization manager about a year ago, based in San Francisco, and now they've continued to hire within the department with the role, of course, assisted to. It says, I think, pilot AI-assisted translation workflow. So obviously needing experience with AI and machine learning, translation technology. But again, I mean, the takeaway, as we said at the time, is that, you know, you've got this AI leader, like arguably the leader, still hiring humans and localization managers to oversee the operations.
New York City and San Francisco, very different ends of the spectrum. I actually don't know what the New York City Campaign Finance Board.
CFB.
What does this do? What does the New York City? Let's ask the AI. What does the New York City Finance Campaign Board?
It says, well, they're supposed to be delivering multilingual election information to voters, candidates, and campaign contributors. At least that role.
Okay, let me add to that. The New York City Campaign Finance Board is an independent, nonpartisan city agency that administers the city's public financing system, enforces campaign finance laws, and promotes voter education. All right. Well,
Now you know
in a
more.
city as
Now
New
you
York,
are
you need more.
informed.
You need more than one language. Closing off on voice AI, which is super active, continues to be, and by no means is this an exhaustive list, but we had 3 funding stories hit in the past few weeks. One is a company called Fish Audio. They raised $52 million, what they call seed round, which is, kind of
Big.
these terms now become like meaningless. A $52 million seed round. That's just 1 year after founding. The text-to-speech supports 80 languages, voice cloning in 30 from a 10-second sample. What about a 2-second sample? I don't know. It gets shorter and shorter. So they're saying they have a $30 million pipeline and 300 qualified demos within 24 hours. I mean, note the terms. So if you're going out with a pipeline,
Yeah.
I mean, a $30 million that's a pipeline. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Sales pipeline.
It's a sales pipeline. Who doesn't have a $30 million sales pipeline? Anyway, and then there's another company called Smallest AI. Cool name. A more reasonably sized 13 million Series A. They already have 60 people on staff. Do the same TTS, STT, speech to speech, etc. Another company interesting called Amelia, which is a 20-year-old company. And yeah, just to make matters worse, they're saying they raised a 67 million Series B. So you're a 20-year-old company and you're raising a Series B, and they're saying that they're surpassed.
Because now they're an AI company. They weren't an AI company 20 years ago.
Everybody is a Series B. Everybody, and they have 60 million ARR. Which, if you actually do have 60 million ARR, you probably would raise. If you're an AI company and you're fast growing and you hit 60 million ARR, you probably raise like a $10 billion anyway. All right, it's actually not more reasonable, but it's a company we know very well, Gradium, because we had them at Silicon London. They added another 100 million to their seed funding, and I think their investors include NVIDIA, again, STT, TTS, voice cloning, etc. And this market's getting very crowded now. I mean, just to go through some of the more recent funding rounds that we looked at, I mean, 11 Labs, of course, Cartesia, Gradium, Rhyme, Bland, Valence, Hume, Coval. Yeah, lots of companies in that space. We'll talk about it, of course, with Chris at SlatorCon San Francisco. Go, get the ticket. Looking forward to seeing you there.